I think sometimes we get caught up thinking I've got to raise my kids to act like good kids and, not embarrass me in public and so forth. And having the attitude of the long term, I'm raising you to be good men, freed me from worrying about, if you're throwing a tantrum, well, 3-year-olds throw tantrums, and sometimes it's in public.
Have you ever wondered how parenting shapes not only the lives of our children, but also our own hearts and faith? Parenting is one of the most beautiful and challenging callings we can undertake, and it touches every aspect of our lives, spiritually, emotionally, and practically.
That's right, Bill. And on today's episode of the Form.Life podcast, we're diving into it, the joys, struggles, and transformative power of parenting. So whether you're a parent, a grandparent, or someone who walks alongside families and children in your community, this conversation is for you.
I'm Bill Gorman, campus pastor at the Brookside campus.
And I'm Paul Brandis, campus pastor at the Shawnee campus, and today I was thrilled to be joined and welcome our special guests, Dan and Mindy, who bring a wealth of direct experience and wisdom to this topic as they have 3 wonderful boys aged 15 to 20. Dan and Mindy have attended Christ Community for over 12 years, both serving the church in a variety of ways, including Dan's current term on our elder leadership team.
In this episode, we'll explore how parenting shapes our faith, the challenges of raising kids in today's culture, and how we can invite God into the daily rhythms of family life.
We're also going to talk about practical ways to nurture your kids' faith, build stronger family connections, and find hope even in the messiness of family life.
So whether you're feeling overwhelmed by the parenting chaos or just looking for some fresh inspiration, join us as we explore how parenting can be a powerful journey of spiritual formation. Let's jump in right now.
Well, Dan and Mindy, it is so good to be with you today, and thank you for taking some time, making space in your schedule to join us on the Form.Life podcast.
You bet.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. You and your family have been a part of the Brookside campus from before the very beginning. You learned that there was going to be a campus in Brookside and immediately started attending the Leawood campus in preparation for that. And so over 10 years, we've known each other because that's how long my history goes back with the Brookside campus. I started there as a resident in 2014, and we're thrilled to both just be spending time with you, but then to focus in on a conversation about parenting. This podcast is all about helping us and helping our listeners follow Jesus in all of life, and all of life very much includes parenting. And we invited you here because you're the perfect parents. You've never made a mistake in parenting ever. No, that's not quite right. But we were just saying, even off air, 10 years we've known one another, and y'all have 3 boys, and Ashley and we have 3 boys, and our boys are almost exactly 10 years younger than your boys. So I remember even in those first conversations, the first opportunities to get to meet you and your family, I truly have always looked up to you as parents and how you lead and structure your family. And again, not perfect parents, but eager to get into the weeds of this. So I'd love to just start with a bit of an overview of your family. And so Mindy, can you tell us a little bit about the Ott family?
Yeah, well, we have 3 boys. Peyton, our oldest, is a sophomore at K-State, and then we have Prosper and Harvest are a senior and a freshman at Rockhurst High School. And we look back to when we first met you, and it feels like we've blinked, and here we are, where they're entering manhood.
Yeah. And how long have you 2 been married, too?
Oh, wow.
How many
That's
years?
a tough question, Paul.
Let's see. Let's put Dan on the spot.
26 years. So 27 years.
It'd have to be closer to 28.
Over 25.
Because we were married
25
seven years when Peyton was born.
Okay.
So, and he's approaching 21.
Oh, my word. Approaching 21.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, Dan, what would you add to sort of who the Ott family is? I was wondering, asked you to think about, is there like a specific story or an example that just is emblematic of or like describes who your family is?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, just kind of thinking about that, I guess I kind of have one like non-church example and then one kind of church example. So just thinking back, we love to play games together. And also with our extended family, with Mindy's brother and sister-in-law and their boys, and
their boys are
Mindy's parents.
pretty close in age, right? Because I know there's been a joy of like cousins that are close in age, gotten to do a little bit of life together over the years.
Yeah. And we were back, I think it was Thanksgiving time, with Mindy's family in Belleville, small town. And the boys really love playing Dungeons and Dragons, so they've gotten kind of into that, and they've invited the parents, and the grandparents to be part of this too.
Okay.
Well, and of course too, Legos are also a big deal in our house, and so the characters are usually Lego characters,
Lego figurines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And, our nephew Max, who's a couple years older than Peyton, was kind of leading the session.
He was the dungeon master.
He was the dungeon master.
There you go.
There you go. And so we're going through this, and we're having fun. And Mindy's mom, Grammy, she's in the mix,
enthusiastically
in her 70s, involved.
Yes.
You know,
she just turned 80.
Teacher, yeah. So she was in the mix.
Spending time with her grandkids. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And there was one point where some spell got cast or whatever, and part of the village burned down.
Oh no!
And we had defeated, I don't know, whatever, these guys, and they were these kind of like little paper figures, and so we thought, they got burned up. We need to burn them. So we threw them into a metal pot, and Peyton went to go light the match, and the match flew across the dining table and landed and left a little burn mark in the table.
Oh my word!
Yeah, and I'm like sitting there going, oh my,
horrified.
My mother-in-law,
Grammy,
right, and. We had a good laugh about it, and she was actually like, "Oh no, we were trying to like get this mark out or whatever." She said, "No, you need to leave that there.
That tells the story.
That tells part of the story."
Yeah. Oh my goodness! Wow.
So anyway, that's kind of
that's a phenomenal story.
Yeah, it's one of our.
No, it's so good.
One of our little game adventures that we had. So then, and just as a church example, just a moment that really struck me was it's been about a year and a half ago. The boys got baptized, and Peyton took the lead really in kind of planning out his baptism. We actually did that at Holly Justice's house, at the Justice House, and obviously, you were part of that.
It's an honor,
and it was really fun to see, even before the baptism, to just look out over the backyard and see all of the people that had come, that had been part of the boys' lives, and lots of people from our church that had really poured into their lives. And then you baptizing Peyton, and then Taylor baptizing Prosper. The drive home was just like a moment of peace that just kind of washed over us, and it was quiet, and it was just so good, so good.
Yeah, it was a really special moment. It was in January, and yet was mild, and we did it in the Justice's hot tub.
Hot tub baptism,
and it just was like really, it's great. It is even like, wow, it is funny, and it was funny, but it also was really powerful, wasn't it? And I just was so proud of those boys. And it was such a, what do you think? 65, 70 people were there? We jam-packed it. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was full enough. We were a little nervous about it.
Yes, we worked it out.
It worked out. It was, and it was so cool to see the young kids gathered around the hot tub, on their hands or down on their knees and sitting so that grown-ups could be around them. And but I'll add to that, Harvest was baptized actually a couple years before that. And
I remember that.
His was so cool because he had waited. The first time that the baptisms, the all-church baptisms came to Brookside, it got announced that it was going to be there, and so later that day, we were sitting around the dining table. Oh, yeah, is anybody interested in doing that now that it's here? And just kind of talk. And then as we were discussing it, realizing Dan was going to be out of town, so it wasn't going to work out to do that. But I said, well, Harvest, we can still go. The other two had a practice that they could go to, and we'll drop them off and we'll just go to the baptism. And that day came, and we dropped the boys off the older two at their practice, and Harvest, who was in about 3rd grade at the time, says, oh, Mom, I forgot my swim trunks. And it dawned on me for the first time he hadn't understood that he wasn't going to be baptized. And he was in tears. It's so cool to have your kid want so desperately to be baptized. So we ended up not going that day. We went home. He was, So it was so exciting when it did come back. Not that it had to be at Brookside, but they wanted it to be. And so when it came back around a couple years later, and he was eager to do that, and Bill got to baptize him, and it's just such a neat thing to watch your kids want that. And later that day, Harvest said, "I just feel so good after the baptism took place." So. The event was not quite the same as being the hot tub baptism.
There's something unique about that. Oh, I love that. I love that story. Yeah, and I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I actually had just come back to my role at Shawnee and was at the service with Harvest when he got baptized at Brookside, because that was the first baptism service that I was at after returning. And I had Bevan with me because Ashley was out of town with the boys. And I know I brought Bevan and Owen to Peyton and Prosper's. And what I love about that is, we mentioned how long our families have known one another and how old my kids are, how old your boys are. And I have so many memories of me serving at Brookside and Bevan loving Peyton, Prosper, and Harvest. And sort of this sort of like what a church is, what a church family is around an intergenerational, because Peyton is this elementary student who's looking up to the beginnings of our youth group at Brookside at that time, with all this longing to be where they are and to be as cool as they are, right? And some of those students are the Junts, as we think about those boys, and the older long boys, right, that were there and all those years ago. And then here's my baby and toddler, just learning to walk and being like, man, that Peyton kid is just the coolest. And so then from a spiritual growth and development perspective, to think about their baptism services and my boys getting to witness and be a part of all of those is, and witness of that is really special to me. So that's awesome. Well, I love to talk about what you two have done and in your parenting, and even a little what you haven't done or what you wish you would do more of or less of. And but to even start us off more, because I think you've framed the family well, and I definitely believe people, even to this point, are starting to catch a vision for who you are as parents. But I wonder if I could start us with Eugene Peterson's message paraphrase of Ephesians 6:4. So Ephesians 6, one of the great letters, Ephesians, the book of Ephesians, one of the great letters of Paul to the church in Ephesus. Ephesians 6, one of the places where he's addressing the household directly, and Ephesians 6:4 is where he writes specifically to parents. So it has direct relevance to our conversation. And the way Peterson captures this paraphrase, I just think is brilliant. He says, "Parents, don't frustrate your children with no-win scenarios. Instead, take them by the hand and lead them in the way of the master."
So good.
So I wonder, can I ask you to both share about a few ways that you've tried to live out this verse? And I'm particularly interested in any practical steps you can think back over that you took about how to lead your boys in the way of the master. So even the baptism story is a great example of your thoughtfulness around that, but your encouragement, because that honors Jesus when we obey his teaching and example to get baptized. But what else over the life of your parenting would be practical in that way? So either one of you can jump in.
Well, when I read that, I was kind of thinking of something that's not church related per se,
totally
but
fine.
Just when when Peyton and Prosper, I think it was before Harvest was born, we took a parenting class. And one of the things we learned that really stuck with us was giving our kids options, and always giving them options that we can live with. And so instead of saying, would you want to do this or do you want to do that? And I really want them to choose choice 1, and I'm going to say no to choice 2, to always be given, and learning to do that like throughout the day, really. Do you want to eat your food in a bowl or on a plate? And and when we practiced it with little things, then that a lot of times then transferred, since we were in the habit of it, into a little bit bigger things.
And as they got older.
And as they got older.
Because I did that with my 3-year-old this morning. Do you want Daddy to pick you up to take you to the car, or do you want to walk to the car?
Right. Yeah.
He's getting to the car either way,
right,
but
exactly.
he has an option and a choice.
Exactly.
In the midst of that.
And
but
that
the framework holds even as the boys get older.
And it
the
avoids
children
some
get
of
older.
that frustration of, so this is what's going to happen, but you get some choices on how.
Yeah. And a partnership. Between the parent and the child as well. So I love that. That's great.
So giving them appropriate power.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Dan, what comes to your mind?
Well, that verse came to mind because I've got some note cards that I try to pray daily for the boys, and on Harvest's card in particular, I have that verse, and it's the fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. And for each of the boys, so I got this idea from another Paul Miller, wrote the book The Praying Life.
The Praying Life, absolutely.
Yeah, and did a book study.
Great resource. We'll link to it in the show notes.
Yeah,
it's an amazing.
And that number of things hit me in that book, and it really kind of helped me deepen my prayer habits and prayer life. And so each morning I just have these cards. It's pretty simple stuff, but one question or one thing that I say for each of them is to help me to be a faithful father, pointing Peyton or Prosper or Harvest to Jesus. And then ask the question, where is God working and inviting Harvest to join him? This idea that God's already at work.
Yeah.
He's already at work in their lives, and really our job as parents is to see that and figure out where can we join God in the work he's already doing in their lives. And that's kind of helps to, like, first thing in the morning, just to kind of set the tone for the day. And sometimes my brain is so focused on my work or what's coming up that day with work, but then it kind of shifts to, wait a minute, well, what's going on with the boys today? And where do I need to be present for them in and throughout the day?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, as I think about this verse, and I've seen you both model this so well, to lead someone else in the way of the master, you must first be led in the way of the master, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a broad sort of point. Like, actually, the number one thing that our kids need from us is for us to daily enter into the easy and light yoke of Jesus and submit to him as our master. And I just have seen you both model that so well in your own individual journeys with Jesus. But how have you seen that kind of dynamic play out? Like, how speak to that a little bit. The connection of sort of your own yokedness to Jesus and how it connects or makes parenting easier or harder, or is the thing you need to do in parenting. How have you seen that dynamic play out?
Well, I would say I was kind of, as Dan was sharing about that, and I was just thinking about back to a time when the boys were young and having a season of feeling the heaviness of the responsibility of raising the boys up, like doing that well. Yeah. And I always had the attitude, and I would say this to the boys, we are raising you to be good men. And that freed me, actually, from worrying about how they were as children. I think sometimes we get caught up thinking I've got to raise my kids to act like good kids and, not embarrass me in public and so forth. And having the attitude of the long term, I'm raising you to be good men, freed me from worrying about, if you're throwing a tantrum, well, 3-year-olds throw tantrums, and sometimes it's in public.
Often it's in public. Right. That's right.
But I had a season, and it was actually while we were attending Leewood. I specifically remember it was kind of during that year, not because of that, but where I was.
But the boys would have been really little then.
Yeah. I think Harvest was about 2, maybe.
I was going to say, couldn't have been more than that.
Yeah, and where I just felt that heaviness of, we got to get this right. Like, it really matters how they turn out. And then God's saying to me through, sermons or some of the things we were reading at the time. We were doing, it's called Razor's Edge.
Church for Monday. Yes, love the throwback. There it is. Iron sharpening iron.
We're participating in this, but God's got this. Like, He's just invited us in.
Wow.
We have the joy of partnering with Him to raise the boys up. And when you know that,
take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And too, like, He's shaping us. He's shaping us through our experiences as parents. That we're going to get it wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but that's part of the process of our growth too, and kind of pressing into that, being okay with that,
and an opportunity to confess and ask for forgiveness and say sorry, kids. I blew it. I wasn't the dad that you deserve or needed me to be. And
I've had a few of those conversations, where afterwards I realized, I didn't get that right, and it waited a little bit, but went back and said, hey, Peyton, I'm sorry that I didn't do that quite right. And those are powerful moments.
They are. I mean, that's parenting in light of the gospel, I'm convinced, and with the resources of the gospel. And actually on a different episode that we is also going to be during the season, so we'll link to it either direction, whichever one came out first. But we've got an episode, a return guest, Dr. Julia Sadusky, and she had written a couple of books on talking to your kids about sex, kids, and then talking to your teenagers about that, and had a broader conversation about her, but entered in around those specific topics in parenting. And one of the things she said is, she's a counselor, comes at these topics, and then even working with families from a counselor's perspective. And she said, nobody lands in my office for therapy that has a presenting issue of my parents apologized to me a lot when I was a kid and owned the ways in which they, weren't as good of parents as they wanted to be or were intending to be. Yeah. And I think there's such power in that, especially because, that's the way of Jesus is, repentance is to be the air we breathe. And so I think I've seen you both model that as well. So,
and I was thinking about the Great Invitation being such a big
Matthew
part
11.
of Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30, just being a big part of the DNA here in our church. But thinking of that in terms of not just an invitation as individuals, but an invitation as a family to all come under that yoke of Jesus together, and inviting our kids to come into that too. And I've seen that and felt that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's so beautiful. Yeah. Anything else on kind of this verse or anything inspired by that? I can move us on, but I don't want to rush past any other thoughts or comments.
I think the biggest thought that came in my mind as we were talking about that is as parents we're not doing this alone. And we shouldn't be doing this alone, or even alone as a couple that it takes this community, sure. And we have really seen that play out in big ways. With your involvement as student pastor and the young adults in our church, just truly pouring into our kids, like that's just priceless for them to see. Other young adults are just a few years older than them living, in a way that's different, that's
countercultural.
Countercultural. That's right. That's
countercultural.
exactly right.
Right.
Yep.
And that's so much more than what either of us could give them. So that's been a big part. And then too with our community group.
Yeah.
Our boys
So
are
important.
we love our community group and our boys, and at one time we had a huge group of boys. We've still got a pretty good, solid group of boys in the group from other couples and things, and they enjoy coming to community group because that's a time they get to be together and play together and just have fun together, and just do life together. So that's
To
been big.
have our kids be known by other adults in the church community it's just invaluable.
Yep.
And we've always brought the boys into church with us.
Yes.
Sometimes there's seasons when less of that, but as an overarching, that's been really important to us through the years. And through that, and then watching the boys now serve, they are Sunday school teachers. They're assistants, and getting to serve alongside them, and watching them really come into their own in that way. But also that's another touch point in where they get to know adults, and adults know them.
Yeah.
And so that between that and the youth program, and also our community group, that intergenerational piece is so vital.
Yeah.
Both upward and downward.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
Being
totally.
able to be known by somebody older than them outside of us, and then to be known by somebody younger, to have them having kids look up to them. And so going back to the baptism, like as cool as it was to watch the boys get baptized, Isaac, one of the boys in our community group,
I was just thinking.
when it was time for when he was getting baptized, and his parents said, "Who do you want? Who do you?" And he asked for Prosper.
I know.
I mean,
It's so good.
it's so cool.
And Isaac was at the baptism, at the hot tub baptism.
Yeah.
He was the present there, and then they've been in they've been in community group. You guys have been in community with the Stillies for.
At least,
quite a while.
maybe 10 years.
It's got to be a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I placed them in it, and that's how long, because I was doing that work, and I don't think I did. I think they predated me. So, and you've had shifts and changes in that group over the
It's
years.
not
and
been perfect. It's
people in,
challenging.
people out, right? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Community groups have ebbs and flows and seasons, but you have, for as long as I've known the OT community group, or other people have led it at different points, and you've been members of it, and there's been a whole family vision for that gathering, and that has almost immediately and then it's been sticky to trickle down to the kids, where the kids are like, hey, no, when's community group?
Yeah,
like,
they look forward to it for sure.
Right.
All of them do, and and then to after church, like Dan and I are waiting on, and it's not just our kids. Just to be clear.
Yes, we have the same dynamics at Shawnee.
Watching the kids in church, whether it's the young ones running around and playing, not wanting to go home because they're having a good time at church, or the youth that are chatting not just with each other but with their youth volunteers, with the adults is
really beautiful.
Yeah.
No, there is that kind of word, intergenerational, all the research, when you talk about how to hand faith to the next generation, talks about the importance of that as quickly as possible, as quickly as you can have your kids plugged into the vibrant life of the entire community, the better. And that's not easy. I mean, there were challenging, I was there when the boys were much younger, and you were instilling the value of we worship in worship service as a family, and there were hard Sundays with that, and challenging seasons, and you always have been a second row family, and I've been preaching with the boys right there, but there's a goodness and a sweetness to it as well, and it's borne fruit over the years. It really has, undeniably. So
it definitely comes to being willing to have him stand up on the pew during singing, so they can feel like it's a part of it, being okay with the donut hole that rolls up front.
because the Brookside floor slopes, so the donut holes roll down, and you're standing there preaching, and there's a donut hole.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep preaching.
Being okay with the imperfections of that moment.
It's beautiful, absolutely.
Well, and too, I think as parents too, the richness of the teaching at Christ Community is good, and like me, I'm a note taker. I like to take notes, but when kids are little, it's like that's part of the sacrifice. You got to give that up sometimes, just to have the kids in church and be a distraction, and it's okay.
It is okay. It's good,
and it's an investment.
Yeah.
So
an investment that pays off in droves for sure.
Yeah.
Well, as you think back over your parenting, and you're very much actively still parenting. In fact, one of my next questions is about thinking about shifting to almost a different season of parenting as kids get older and older and older. But as you think back over your parenting life and work so far, what is something you wish you did more of, and what is something, or is there anything that you think that you should have done less of?
I think maybe what comes to mind for me is, more just engagement, with like coaching opportunities and, extracurricular type activities with the boys. I mean, we did, soccer, and we've done cross country and done a lot of different things that have been really good for the boys. But just for me personally, I kind of feel like, gosh, looking back now, like I wish I would have just been maybe even a little more engaged at that level. So yeah.
And what the little bit that you did do that, or what sort of feels like the missed opportunity in that? Because I'm right there right now with all that stuff, where they're sending out the emails, hey, will you coach the soccer team? Will you? And I've done some of that and have seen a lot of fruit from it, but I'm just interested in your perspective. What's the opportunity there?
Well, a couple things come to mind. I think it's just like being present, and for your kids to just see you in that role, even if you're not like the head coach, but you're, an assistant coach, or you're helping out, or you're just helping, pick up stuff or get the snacks ready for the team, or those kinds of things. I think those things are really important for them to see that from their parents, and then
showing up in their world, and what they're invested in, and hey, I'm moving towards you in this, for sure.
And knowing more of the kids, and more of the kids knowing you as a parent, I think that'd be a piece of that, is that the other kids, their friends, knowing the parents more. We had a lot of that through church, but having that outside of church and in their school community and stuff is probably an area we both recognize that we didn't do as much of that kind of thing. So
it does seem like a unique missional opportunity, and for the whole family. For the kids, for the parents, for the siblings. It feels, because that is where the peoples are. All the peoples are doing the extracurriculars for their kids. And so to show up there as a family and participate feels like a great opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
So
right. Yeah. And if you're the coach or the assistant coach, it kind of just it gives you another opportunity to be known and to know not only the kids but also their parents and those kinds of things, and build those relationships, which is good. And I guess I'll just say, for the benefit of us having 3 boys, we find ourselves doing more and more of that. Particularly, I think, with the cross country team at Rockhurst, that we do know a lot of families, and we know a lot of the boys that are part of that program, and the coaches and the whole bit, and a lot of that's because we're there, we're helping with the snack table, we're helping coordinate some of the parent tasks and that kind of thing, and so it's a good thing.
That's great. Yeah. Anything more of, less of, Mindy? What would you add? Would you say something different? Or
the first thing that always comes to my mind is piano lessons. Man,
more or less.
We never did them.
So you can't do less.
It's the one thing.
Sure.
Or music lessons.
Yeah. one thing I know about your family is that you've prioritized breakfast together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about that and like think through like meal times? Even do you do dinner most nights? What has that? Like, has there been a seasonality to that based on extracurricular activities or the boys wanting to be with friends or a large homework load? Or what have those rhythms looked like over the years? And Dan was just sharing with me at lunch a few weeks ago that there's still a priority of a breakfast kind of gathering. Talk a little bit about that if I can put you on the spot for that question. Because I think that is one when I think more of, less of. I hardly ever hear parents say, I wish we did less meals together.
Right, yeah.
It's like the goodness of gathering around our table. So I wonder if I could ask you to speak to that.
Yeah. Well, I'll say, it is a challenge because of just the world we live in. And I'd say for us, it can be a little bit hit and miss, but we do tend to kind of come back to it. And it's changed over the years. I think, one of the things we enjoy doing is like a Saturday morning breakfast, especially with littler kids. That can be a lot of fun to do, to
make it a big thing.
Yeah.
Well, and I was going to say, because you've also used this, because the table is a powerful place for your own immediate biological family, but it is also probably the place of there's always room for one more. And hospitality and welcome. And my family experienced one of those, at least, probably more. Saturday morning, big breakfast at the at home, start at the table, real intentionality, thoughtfulness, welcome, and a lot of Legos after that. It's like we all eat, and then all 6 boys. It wasn't 6 at the time.
No.
We didn't have Ethan. All 5 boys spread out. We find them upstairs later. They're all playing Legos. Peyton's showing Bevan his sets. So you've also utilized the table as a place of welcome and hospitality. So sorry, breakfast Saturday mornings right now.
And we've actually maybe in a little less of that. We've got teenagers that like to sleep in on Saturday mornings, that kind of thing. But also kind of thinking through, like on the weekend, trying to carve out, a Sabbath time to be able to have rest and just time together, play games together, those kinds of things. And those are kind of good for cooking up burgers on Saturday night, that kind of thing around the table. I think currently, like where we're at right now is, with the boys in high school, of doing weekday breakfast time together, and it's not always perfect, and somebody might has to rush out the door kind of thing because they got up a little late or whatever, but for our whole family to get up and have just at least a little bit of time first thing in the morning together, having breakfast, and to look each other in the eye and say good morning and goodbye and have a good day and that kind of thing. That's something I would say I wish we'd done maybe more of earlier, but now we're doing it. It's been really, really good to do really And Mindy's not the morning person.
I'll just speak to that because that we've really changed that this year, I think, with our breakfast piece. So I am not a morning person. I don't wake up grumpy. I just don't enjoy waking up and getting out of bed. And Dan's an early morning person.
Yes.
And so I usually was the one when the boys were younger that was taking them to school, but there were seasons when Dan could with his schedule, and he enjoyed doing that. And I enjoyed that. That meant I could just stay in bed and sleep in. And I remember really a year or so ago laying in bed one morning and hearing them downstairs and not wanting to get out of bed because it was cold and thinking to myself, how do I feel about this? I would rather stay here in the comfort and warmth of the bed and not start my day yet than go see my kids off to school. And it was a really convicting moment. And, it's fine if that's a one-off once in a while. But I did, in that moment, I thought, this has become not an everyday habit, but frequently enough that it bothered me. And so one of the things that when we spend time at my parents', we're there for a few weeks at a time, sometimes in the summertime.
Yeah.
For wheat harvest in the summer. One of the things that has been consistently true over the years is my mom started making fruit cups. And so every morning, and sometimes I'll get up and I'll be there to help cut up the fruit or whatever and preparing those. And sometimes not. Sometimes they're just ready to go. But we all really like those fruit cups. I don't know what it is. And really for the last couple of years, I thought, I'm going to keep this up when we get home. And this time I really did. I thought, I'm going to keep this up. And we got home and I started doing that. And that became the thing for me that got me out of bed.
Oh, I love that.
Okay, I got to get up because making the fruit cups first all had. And that's really changed it for us, that we're all up and together for breakfast. And so, that's been really wonderful this year to be able to start our day out that way. And then to really, truly hug everybody goodbye in the morning.
Right. Intentionality around that.
Yeah. And we had one a couple of weeks ago where one of the boys was pretty grumbly. And I can't remember exactly what happened, but something had happened that I was pretty irritated, quite frankly. I think we all were. And I went to hug him and I said, I'm holding on extra long today because I'm pretty frustrated with you right now, but I love you in it, and it's even more important. And so it was just like, it's okay to be able to get to be angry with our kids first thing in the morning, even because that means we saw them.
Yep. Well, it actually reminds me of a bit of the like the church gathered and the church scattered. Right. Yeah. And like the family gathered and the family scattered. Yeah. And that happens, but like a dinner time rhythm is, I think, also really good. Like a return to like, hey, how was the day? Yeah. And where was Jesus in the midst of it? And we love the high-low buffalo, and the buffalo is the silly thing. Yep. It's like the high of your day, the low of your day, the buffalo. We've got young kids, so the buffalo really works. Just yesterday, there was a couple of deer that like came really close to Ashley and Ethan's car as they were driving to pick up Bevan and Owen from school. And it was this kind of chaotic moment. Probably a little it was stressful. Ashley said it was stressful. They get past it, and Ethan, 3 years old, goes, "Mom, were the deer your buffalo?" Like he's really latched on to this idea. Yeah. So there's something good about like an end of the day, kind of what that does. But what I love about a breakfast, not that, again, there's seasonality, there's grace, there's your own family and what you have to choose, but there's something about the creativity and the commitment that you're demonstrating in that. And I just have this vision of like, we gather as a family, a spiritual family, on Sunday mornings to sort of set the week in motion and to gather for encouragement. And then there's a benediction and a sending, and the church is gathered and scattered. And right now, your family's in the sweet season of the family gathered in the morning and then the family scattered to the various callings that God has upon each of the four of you. And missing Peyton, who's at college, and probably praying for him and blessing him from afar. And so that's really beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Meals, no matter what time of day it is, that's just such an easy time to pray together.
Yes.
Right.
That's easy to let it slip maybe in other areas sometimes. We've had, when the boys were really little, we'd pray at bedtime. Yep. We're not great about that now. I had a season when Peyton was stressed at school, and so one of the things we did was pray like we load up in the van and we're going to pray as we're heading to school.
Yeah, I remember that. Middle school. Yeah.
And but that was seasonal. But at meals, it's just such an easy time to be able to pray together and in all the different forms.
That's good. Yeah, because it can often become a mealtime prayer. Can become perfunctory. Right. It's like, God, thanks for the food, which, man, we should never do that, right? Like, it should always have, like, rich meaning within it, but it can also be an opportunity, a catalyst to practice prayer in its different forms there. I love that.
Yeah, and, like, I'll say for me, one of the things, like, if I'm not sure what to pray, we do the Lord's Prayer. Yeah. For meal, and it's good.
Yep. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll actually, I'll make my family sing the doxology.
We do that.
We do that too.
Occasionally
Sometimes it sounds better than others.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah,
and God loves a joyful noise.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my boys call it Praise God. That's what they call that song. They call it Praise God.
So big question: is it trespasses, sins, or debtors.
I know.
This is a
big
big debate at our house.
Yes.
We are a house divided.
I actually say sins. So I've done some translating because I've been doing the Lord's Prayer with my kids for so long and so young. I've done some I translate a little bit, almost interpret.
Yeah.
Because I actually think this is an aside. Maybe we should do a whole episode on this. I actually think the Lord's Prayer is designed as a portal prayer. Yeah. You thematically have kind of almost everything you would need to pray about.
Yep.
And each phrase within it, there's a richness as a launching pad into praying about that theme. And anyway, so I love that though. We do the same thing. I love to know that you guys do the doxology as well.
Oh yeah.
Well, Prosper, our middle son's choir is his thing.
I was going to say, you have
Loves
Prosper's fallen in
choir,
love with
so,
Rockhurst
It
Choir.
really has.
So I just it's a good way to be able
It
to
engages him in
it. He
unique way.
kind of gets us started on the right note. So and then provide some critique
Yes.
afterwards. So, yes.
Give some feedback. Oh, well, one of the things I thought about for this episode and our listeners is parents. We got listeners of all ages. And so we have parents here who, again, young family like mine, of kids that are in student age and college. And then we have empty nester parents.
Yeah.
But you are still parents.
Right.
And one of the things on household codes in the New Testament, one of the points I always make is those do not expire. Mm-hmm. So when Scripture says honor your father and mother, that's a timeless command that does change in each and every season. But Ephesians 6:4 holds when your kids are adults as well. So Peyton is almost 21, Prosper and Harvest they're getting older. How have you started to think about that turn and transition to parenting adult children, and what wisdom or insight or hopes and longings do you have about that time in your parenting life?
Well, I guess I feel like I've had some really good conversations with Peyton, as he has been at college and has experienced, good things and challenges, and it's just fun to see him kind of becoming, an adult.
Yep.
And I'm really proud of him. And with that too, to be able to, in the midst of that, have some vulnerability, to be able to share and say, hey, you're not alone. I'm with you on that, or in some things like, hey, I still struggle with, feeling that shadow of loneliness or despair or whatever those things are. And we've had some good conversations around that piece. And then too, just the fun of kind of getting to think back about what life was like in college and see your kids experiencing that too, has been really, really good.
Yeah.
But definitely a shift to, and it feels hard to be like, okay, he's not here all the time, and he's not, he's making his own choices, and how can we make sure we're staying engaged at the right level?
That's a great
more than anything,
question.
just like being available.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I see my phone ring in the middle of the day,
Doing everything you can
I
to
answer
pick that
it.
up.
Yeah,
right?
I pick it up. Kind of no matter what's going on. I mean, if I'm in a meeting at work, I'm like afterwards, I try and call him right back.
Yep.
Just because I know that those moments are important.
It's vital. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's great.
And I've tried to get in the habit, and I don't do it every day, but pretty regularly, I'll text him like the verse of the day from the Bible app.
Oh yeah.
And initially, I was just sending that to him, and I wouldn't get any response. So I'll send the verse, and then maybe send a follow-up text with just some kind of comment like, "Hey, that's a good one for a Monday," or just something like that, or ask him, "Hey, how." What you got going on today, or something like that, just to get, kind of get some feedback on what he's got going on.
Oh, I love that.
So
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mindy, any thoughts about this?
I think so. This summer when we were at camp, we kind of had a moment where Peyton was counselor the first week, both weeks. He was a counselor both weeks, or involved in that way this year for the first time. And he'd had something with one of his campers, that his camper had shared something that was just really difficult and heavy. And that had happened, I think, quite a bit earlier in the day, and it just weighed on him through the day. And at the end of the day, in the evening, when we were doing something, some social activity, he came and found us. He came and got me, and he just, he just had this heaviness on him that he was wanting his parents. He was wanting to share with one of his. And his counselor, kind of the person who was in charge of him, was right there. She'd come with him to get me, and so while I was praying with him, and he was crying, and she says, "Oh, I hope this never changes, or I hope he's always like this with you." And I said, "No, like this, it's me now, but someday you'll get married, and this will be your wife that you go to with these heavy things." And I think so, kind of just like realizing that we're entering that transitional stage of life. And of course, who knows when that kind of thing will happen. But just to recognize as he's growing older and entering adulthood and, prospers close behind, and to realize that there is this transfer of a lot of that. Of course, we all still need our parents.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. I think about how much I look to my parents for things even now, and I'm 50.
Yep. Yep.
But it looks different. And so kind of just recognizing that we are approaching that stage where hopefully that there will be that other person that they're turning to and taking these things to, and being ready to let go of that. And as parents to hand that off and find ways to parent well in that from a completely different role.
Yeah.
So
no,
just kind of recognizing the recognition that that's coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So.
Yeah. And I do think, I've noticed when it catches parents by surprise.
Yeah.
That can be hard.
Yeah.
And so an awareness, a recognition, a handing it over to God, and a find trusted guides ahead of you and say, what were your best practices here, and how can I not pay your dumb tax?
Yeah.
Help us to sort of learn well in this space. I know you two will be that for Ashley and I as your boys continue to get older, for sure. So that's great.
I think one of the payoffs we're seeing from the investment of Peyton being, involved with youth group and having young adult leaders, the Legos have been big in his life, and Amanda was pretty heavily involved in Christian Challenge at K-State, and several other young adults in our church that have talked to Peyton about that. And since he's gone, he's gotten engaged in Christian Challenge. He's got a life group. He's connected with other Christians at K-State to have, to carry kind of church from his home here in Kansas City, and forming some new church friends, in a new place. And so, and we've learned when Amanda says that you're going to do something, then you're going to do it. You do it. And she told him, and so he had to get it done.
That's right. Oh yeah, that's exactly right. Well, final question for both of you as we wrap up. Parenting is hard work at any stage. It very, very much is. Even as your kids leave the home and you become a parent of adult children, there are real. That's why I asked the question. That is not the finish line of parenting, and there are real deep challenges there. But then you're thinking about a newborn and the physical demands on a mom and dad, and the mom in particular, and toddlers and tantrums of 3-year-olds. Parenting at every. I mean, Bill Gorman looked at me when Bevan was a baby and Lucy was just a little bit older than him, but old enough where there was a moment with Lucy and he just looks at me and he goes, parenting doesn't get easier, it just gets different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never forgotten that.
Yeah.
So we all need some encouragement. So what's one encouragement that you would offer to parents who are seeking to love their children well into the way of Jesus?
I think, the thing that comes to mind for me is just that you're not alone. Yeah. You're not alone in it. You're doing this together with other parents. A lot of other parents have gone before you, and just, if you're needing help, ask for help.
Ask for help. So good.
Ask for help.
Absolutely.
Of course, plenty of prayer in that too. But I think most of all, just having other people to connect with, to reach out to ask for help, and don't sweat the small stuff, and don't
take the long view.
Take the long view. That's right. That's right.
Good. Mindy, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say definitely ask for help when you need it. Accept the help that people offer. I think that we're in a society where we tend to feel guilty about accepting offers of help in any area. And it's especially in parenting. And I think so often we aren't in a place where we have relatives nearby. A lot of us don't. We didn't have, grandparents in town or aunts, So when your neighbor offers or your friend at church offers to help out with something, take them up on it.
It's good.
That's huge. And then also to know, going back to what I said earlier, that, know God's got this. And you don't need to feel self-conscious about all of it. Like, I just feel like that was so freeing to, expect your kids to act like kids. Expect them to do all the things, good and bad, that kids do. And that doesn't mean you don't parent them through it, but you can just have a freedom in knowing that's normal.
Right.
And that's okay. I think that there's a lot of, I just hear a lot of young moms especially talk about this embarrassing moment that happened in public, or this, this thing, or getting advice from somebody and having that feel shaming in some way.
Yep.
Like, nope. Just accept it. Like, you can take it or leave it. It doesn't mean you have to use it. But just accept it as the good intention that it is. And so just not have to have that self-consciousness about it, I guess I would say, or fear of how you may appear to other people. To know God's got this, and you can parent them through it.
Love that. God does have it. Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much. This was an absolute delight. I made a joke before we started recording that we're going to have a follow-up episode with Peyton and Prosper and Harvest. We'll get them talking about the Ott family. It kind of would be fun to do that.
Yeah.
They would all be phenomenal podcast guests. I'm convinced of this.
And they would love to dish on us.
That's right. I've only shared good things. So we do have a final question. It's a wrap-up, get to know you. You both have done amazing work, both inside and outside the home at different points and seasons, and you get to do amazing work now. But if you could do anything besides the amazing work that God calls you to do, what would that be? We've had all range of answers. We never know the answer beforehand. It's been a fun get to know you question at the end of each episode. So either one of you can dive in. What would you do if it could do something beside the amazing work you get to do?
I bet there's something comes to mind for me. So I grew up kind of out in the country, so small town, country boy kind of stuff. And my dad was a hunting and fishing guy, so we went hunting and fishing every weekend. And I worked for farmers growing up and that kind of thing. And thinking about the future even. My dream job would be to have like a hunting preserve and be able to take people out hunting, every day, guide them, that kind of thing. That would be amazing. And come back, sit around the campfire and
build relationships with them.
Yeah,
totally. Oh, that's great. Wonderful. Love that answer. Yeah, Mindy.
I would love to run or work in like a ladies' dress shop.
Hey.
Did anybody see the show What Not to Wear?
Oh yeah. Oh
that
yeah.
used to be on.
Yes. Yeah. I know that show.
Not to be on TV with it, but the idea of being able to help people, women in particular, just like feel good about themselves and how they look. I think that would be really cool to be able to help people just feel good about walking out of the house.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
that's so great. Both of those are wonderful answers. So we get to know our guests. I've known you guys forever, but those were wonderfully delightful answers. So thank you again, both of you, and listeners. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Form.Life podcast.